A silent city of stone waits high in the mountains, built by hands we cannot name. These mountain basin ruins are more than just old rocks. They are the legacy of a lost society that perfected architectural techniques we struggle to explain even today. By the end of this journey, you will understand how a civilization without modern technology engineered structures that have stood for millennia. How did they move massive stones with such precision? And why did they build in such remote, cloud-wrapped valleys? What does their sudden disappearance tell us about the fragility of even the most advanced societies? What forgotten story does a single, perfectly fitted stone block hold? The same mountains that protected these ruins also hid them from the world for centuries. Wrapped in mist and separated by treacherous passes, these high basins were natural fortresses of silence. Their extreme isolation is precisely what calls to the modern explorer, promising a glimpse into a past untainted by later hands. While ancient cities in more accessible valleys were often built over, recycled into new towns, these mountain sanctuaries were left alone, frozen in time. Early accounts from the first outsiders to reach them speak of a profound disorientation. They described walking into a city that seemed to had simply been paused, with walls still standing tall and open plazas waiting for a crowd that never returned. The sheer effort required to even reach these sites meant that only the most determined or the incredibly lucky ever found them. Some of the most significant discoveries were pure accidents, made by local guides or hunters following an animal trail. They would return with stories that sounded like legends, of vast stone complexes clinging to cliff sides, of structures that defied any known building style. This raw sense of stumbling upon the impossible is what fuels archaeology here today. Every expedition into these thin air landscapes is a gamble against the elements, a race against time, and whether to gently extract answers from the stone. The terrain itself is not just a backdrop, it is an active participant in the mystery. It forced the builders to become innovators. Why would a society choose such a difficult, demanding place to call home? The answer lies in the stones they left behind and the ingenious, almost impossible way they put them together. The perfection of their stonework is the first clue that we are dealing with master builders. What you notice immediately is the complete absence of mortar, the glue that holds most ancient structures together. Instead, these builders used a technique of interlocking stones, each one uniquely shaped to fit perfectly with its neighbors. The joints are so tight that you cannot slide a piece of paper between them, even after centuries of shifting earth and weather. This was not simple stacking, it was a kind of three-dimensional stone puzzle engineered for incredible strength. To achieve this, they had to cut each block with a precision that seems to defy their presumed tools, creating angles and curves that fit together with machine-like accuracy. This method did more than just create sturdy walls. It allowed the entire structure to move and flex during earthquakes, dissipating energy that would have shattered a rigid building. It was architecture that lived and breathed with the mountain itself. Beyond the individual stones, the layout of their cities reveals a mind thinking on a grand, cosmic scale. Many of the principal structures are aligned with celestial events, their doorways or windows framing the sunrise on a solstice or the rising of a specific star cluster. This tells us that for them, building was not just a practical act, it was a spiritual one, a way of weaving their community into the fabric of the universe. Their architectural vision also departed dramatically from the straight lines and right angles we often associate with ancient monuments. They built graceful, curved walls that echoed the surrounding peaks and hidden underground complexes that tapped into the stable temperature of the earth. Perhaps most impressively, they engineered sophisticated water channels and reservoirs, directing mountain springs through the very heart of their city. This was a society that did not fight against its environment, but collaborated with it, using a profound understanding of hydrology and geology to create a seamless whole. This harmony is most evident in their use of materials. They did not import foreign stones for prestige. They used what the mountain provided, but they used it in ways we are still unraveling. They worked with incredibly hard local rock, shaping it with what we assume were simple stone and copper tools. The question of how they achieved such flawless surfaces and complex shapes with primitive technology is one of the field's greatest puzzles. It suggests a knowledge of stonework that has been lost to time, perhaps involving techniques we have not yet considered. Their buildings were therefore born from the mountain twice over, first in the material they quarried and again in the design philosophy that mirrored the natural world. This unique blend of technical mastery, astronomical alignment, and environmental integration defines their architectural signature. It is a style without a direct parallel, setting them apart as true originals in the ancient world. To see this genius fully realized, we must journey to the first key site, a place where these abstract techniques become a breathtaking stone and water reality. High in a secluded Andes basin, the terraced citadel of Cloud Valley unfolds across the mountainside like a great stone staircase built for giants. These are not simple farming steps, but a breathtaking fusion of architecture and agriculture, a cascading series of walls that transformed a steep, rugged slope into a fertile, living landscape. Each terrace was a masterclass in engineering, built with an internal skeleton of drainage channels that carefully managed water from glacial melts. This hidden network prevented the soil from washing away during heavy rains, turning a potential liability into a sustained source of life. It was a system that thought generations ahead, ensuring the land could provide for centuries. At the heart of the citadel lies its most enigmatic structure, a circular observatory dominating the central plaza. The stones used here are different, possessing a unique density and composition. When spoken near, certain frequencies of sound are subtly amplified, creating a soft resonance. This was not an accident. It suggests a space where voice and music were intimately connected to the heavens, a place for ceremony or perhaps for communicating across the vast plazas in a way we can only begin to guess. The entire city was designed with this multifunctional genius. Covered walkways did more than connect residential compounds. They also functioned as aqueducts, channeling fresh water directly through the community. Every architectural choice served multiple purposes, blending the practical with the profound. This integration reaches its peak when you consider the citadel's celestial alignment. The layout of its major structures does not follow a mundane grid, but instead mirrors specific constellations only fully visible from that thin, high-altitude air. The builders were not just placing buildings, they were charting the stars onto the Earth, weaving their home into the cosmos itself. To walk through Cloud Valley is to understand that for this society, architecture was never just about creating shelter. It was the physical expression of their relationship with the mountain, the water, the sky, and each other. Every stone was placed with intention, creating a harmony that speaks across the centuries. How did they achieve such seamless unity between form and function? The answer is locked in the very stone they used and the mysterious methods they employed to shape it. The genius of their walls lies not in what they used, but in what they left out. There is no mortar, no binding agent to fill the gaps, because there simply are no gaps to fill. Each stone was meticulously carved to lock with the ones around it, creating a continuous, monolithic surface. This technique, known as polygonal masonry, transformed a wall from a simple stack into a single, flexible entity. Think of it not as a wall, but as a giant, three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle where every single piece is uniquely shaped. The edges are not straight lines, they are a complex series of angles and curves, each one custom fitted to its specific location in the design. This irregularity is the source of its incredible strength. When an earthquake strikes, a rigid wall built with uniform bricks and mortar will crack along its straight lines. But a polygonal wall has no straight lines of weakness. The energy from the tremor is dispersed across thousands of unique joints, making the entire structure shift and settle as one, rather than shatter. It is architecture that dances with the Earth's movements. Achieving this required more than just skill. It demanded a deep, intuitive grasp of structural mechanics, knowledge likely honed over generations of observing how stone behaves under pressure. How did they execute such precise work? The prevailing theory involves a painstaking process of trial and error. A master builder would have likely shaped a central keystone, and then the adjacent stones were carved again and again, tested for fit, and recut until they nestled perfectly. Some researchers suggest the use of soft clay or plaster templates to transfer the complex shapes from one stone to the next, a method that would explain the accuracy without requiring advanced metal tools. The result is as much a work of art as it is of engineering. The walls present a captivating tapestry of interlocking forms, a pattern that seems almost organic, as if the stones grew together naturally over time. This visual harmony speaks to a society that saw no separation between structural integrity and aesthetic beauty. Yet, this mastery over stone presents an even more fundamental puzzle. How did they quarry and move these massive, perfectly fitted blocks across the mountain's impossible terrain? The quarries themselves are a testament to human determination, carved into cliffs so steep they seem to defy access. Here, workers did not have modern machinery, only an intimate knowledge of the stone itself. They located natural fissures in the bedrock and exploited them with a brilliant, almost elemental simplicity. Using fire to heat the rock surface and then rapidly cooling it with water, they created controlled fractures, effectively persuading the mountain to split along its own hidden lines. Then, with heavy stone hammers, they worked the blocks free. This was not a process of brute force, but of careful, applied physics. Moving these multi-ton blocks from the cliffside to the building site presents an even greater puzzle. The path down was not a smooth road, but a treacherous, uneven mountainside. The solution was a masterpiece of logistics. They likely used a system of log rollers, constantly repositioning them beneath the massive stone as it inched forward. Rope systems operated by teams of workers would have provided control on descents, while temporary earthen ramps could have bridged smaller ravines. The wear patterns found on the bottom of some larger stones tell a story of a long, arduous drag. For the most enormous blocks, some researchers suggest a counterweight system, a primitive but effective crane that used leverage to lift and pivot stones that seem immovable to us today. This entire operation, from quarry to foundation, required a level of coordination that speaks volumes about the society itself. It was not a haphazard effort by a small village. This was the work of a highly organized culture with specialized labor roles, from the master quarrymen who read the stone, to the engineers who designed the transport paths, to the teams who pulled the ropes. They commanded a practical understanding of friction, leverage, and weight distribution, principles we would formalize as physics millennia later. The sheer investment of time and energy is staggering. It tells us that for them, building in stone was not merely a practical necessity, it was a central, defining purpose. They were not just moving mountains, they were building a legacy meant to last forever, a permanent mark upon the world. This profound desire for permanence leads us to look closer, to ask what deeper meanings were being set in stone. what stories these silent walls were built to tell. These silent stones are not just walls, they are a language. The very shapes of the buildings whisper of a cosmology where the earthly and the celestial were inseparable. For this society, the mountain was not merely a place to live, it was a sacred pillar connecting their world to the heavens. This belief is carved into the orientation of their most important structures. A doorway is not just an entrance, it is a frame for the solstice sunrise, marking the turning of the year with a beam of light. A window might align with the rising of a specific star cluster, transforming a room into an astronomical observatory. These were not just homes, they were calendars in stone, their architecture choreographed with the slow dance of the cosmos. This deep connection extended to the landscape itself. The builders did not simply clear away natural rock outcrops, they incorporated them directly into their walls. A massive, ancient boulder would become the foundation of a temple, its raw, unworked surface flowing seamlessly into the crafted stonework. This blurring of the line between the built and the natural world suggests they saw the mountain itself as a living, spiritual entity. Their construction was an act of collaboration with this powerful force, not an attempt to dominate it. This reverence is echoed in the recurring motifs carved into certain stones. Spirals might represent the cyclical nature of life and the seasons, or perhaps the swirling cosmos above. Stylized carvings of local animals like the condor or the puma likely held deep mythological meaning, telling stories of creation, guardianship, or ancestral heroes. Each symbol was a piece of a larger narrative, a story in stone waiting to be read. To understand these ruins only as shelters is to miss their true purpose. They were physical prayers, three-dimensional maps of a belief system that saw the universe as an interconnected whole. The Grand Plaza was not just a public square, it was a stage for ceremonies under the watchful eyes of the stars. The resonating chamber of the observatory was not just a room, it was a vessel for voices meant to reach the heavens. This symbolic layer transforms every walkway and wall into a sacred text, encoding the worldview of a people who saw their destiny written in the night sky and felt the pulse of the divine in the mountain beneath their feet. But these profound spaces were not empty stages, they were the backdrop for a vibrant, complex society. What kind of daily life unfolded within this spiritually charged architecture, and how did their beliefs shape the very rhythm of their existence? The city was a living organism, engineered to breathe with the mountain. Its layout was not a random collection of buildings, but a master plan designed to defy the harsh elements of the high basin. Every structure was placed with purpose, maximizing the precious sunlight that warmed the thin air while providing shelter from the relentless winds that swept across the peaks. Residential districts were not scattered, but intentionally clustered around the central plazas and temples. This placement created a visible social tapestry, where the most significant communal spaces formed the vibrant heart, with homes radiating outward in a clear, though not necessarily harsh, expression of community structure. The very architecture mapped the society's values, placing shared life at its center. Walking through the ruins, you notice the streets are not the grand, straight avenues of other ancient cities. Instead, they are narrow and intentionally winding, weaving between buildings in a careful, meandering path. This was brilliant practical engineering. These serpentine corridors acted as natural windbreaks, disrupting and diffusing the powerful gusts that would otherwise tear through a grid-like layout, making the city a sanctuary of calm air. In contrast, the open plazas were positioned like sun traps, their broad, unobstructed surfaces angled to capture every possible minute of daylight during the short, critical winter days. This balance between sheltered passageways and sun-drenched public squares shows a deep understanding of microclimates. a skill born from generations of observing this specific environment. This foresight extended deep into the hillsides where the community built its lifeline. Carved directly into the stable earth were extensive communal storage facilities. These were not simple pits but sophisticated, temperature-controlled chambers that used the insulating properties of the ground itself to preserve vital food supplies. Grain, potatoes, and other staples could be kept safe from freezing temperatures and spoilage, ensuring the entire community had a buffer against the unpredictable mountain climate. The existence of such shared resources points toward a collective spirit, a society where managing scarcity was a shared responsibility, not an individual burden. This level of urban planning, where every street, every building, and every storage pit served a dual purpose of survival and social cohesion, could not have emerged from a disorganized group. It required a centralized vision, a guiding intelligence capable of orchestrating a complex, long-term project for the benefit of all. What kind of leadership, then, could have directed such a monumental and harmonious effort to build a city in the clouds? The very stones of their city reveal a hidden social blueprint. To erect monuments of such scale and precision required more than just skilled labor. It demanded a highly organized society with clear leadership. The sheer manpower needed to quarry, transport, and fit thousands of multi-ton blocks points to a system capable of mobilizing and sustaining large workforces, likely directed by a class of elite planners. These could have been religious figures who interpreted the celestial alignments, or administrative leaders who coordinated the decades-long projects. Evidence of this hierarchy is etched into the walls themselves. The masonry quality varies dramatically across the city. The grandest temples and observatories showcase that flawless, interlocking polygonal work, a level of artistry reserved for the sacred and the powerful. In contrast, the outer residential compounds and utilitarian buildings often use simpler, rougher fieldstones. This distinction in craftsmanship is a clear architectural signature of social standing, marking the spaces of the elite from those of the common community member. Yet, this was not a society built solely on division. The extensive, ingeniously engineered terraced farms and the shared, labyrinthine water channels speak powerfully of a collective spirit. These were not private resources, they were public works that sustained the entire population, suggesting a form of communal obligation. It is easy to envision a system where every family contributed a certain number of days per season to maintain the aqueducts or expand the agricultural terraces, a kind of labor tax paid for the common good. This balance between social stratification and collective responsibility is what made their achievements possible. Within this framework, specialized knowledge flourished. The artifacts left behind in workshops tell us of master stone carvers who understood the unique properties of local granite, of hydraulic engineers who designed the mountain-wide water systems, and of astronomer priests who charted the heavens. This advanced technical expertise was not common knowledge. It was carefully guarded and passed down through long apprenticeships from one generation of artisans to the next. This social contract, blending elite direction with communal effort and specialized skill, enabled them to think in timescales we find difficult to grasp today. They embarked on building projects that they knew they would never see completed, projects meant for their grandchildren's grandchildren. This long-term vision embedded their core values directly into the landscape, creating a legacy of stone that was meant to endure forever. The sophistication of their social organization inevitably raises a profound question. What kind of tools and technologies did these specialized artisans wield to turn their grand vision into such an enduring reality? Their technological genius is written in the faintest of marks upon the stone, Without metal harder than copper, they faced a fundamental challenge: how to shape incredibly dense granite and basalt. The answer was a principle of using hard against hard. Workers wielded hammerstones made of even tougher rock, like dolerite, to patiently pound the surfaces of building blocks. With relentless, focused percussion, they could gradually fracture the stone along desired lines, a method that was slow but yielded incredible control. For the final, impossibly smooth finish on certain ceremonial stones, they turned to a softer abrasive. A slurry of wet sand and water, applied with a flat stone or a piece of leather, acted as a primitive but highly effective sandpaper, polishing the surface over countless hours until it shone. This was a technology of persistence where time itself was their most abundant resource, but some details are too precise for hammers and sand alone. Tiny, perfectly circular holes drilled into certain blocks and shallow, razor-straight incisions point to more sophisticated tools. The most likely candidates were tubular drills made from hollow cane or perhaps bone. By spinning these tubes back and forth while feeding them an abrasive powder of quartz, sand, and water, they could effectively grind their way through the hardest stone, a slow, steady process that achieved a level of precision we associate with machine tools. Perhaps their most dramatic innovation was in the quarries themselves. To free enormous blocks from the living mountain, they mastered a technique known as thermal shocking. They would build fires directly against the rock face, heating it intensely, and then suddenly douse the hot stone with cold water. The rapid, uneven contraction caused the rock to fracture along its natural fault lines, effectively convincing the mountain to split its own stone for them. It was a brilliant application of basic physics, a way to achieve monumental results with minimal raw force. Moving and positioning these multi-ton puzzle pieces required another kind of intelligence, an intuitive grasp of mechanics. Simple machines became their greatest allies. Wooden levers, lifted by teams of workers, could incrementally pivot a massive block. Earthen ramps, built and dismantled as a project progressed, allowed them to raise stones to great heights. Frame structures made from logs provided the lifting power needed to set a keystone into its final, perfect position. Each of these technologies was simple in isolation, but when combined with skilled coordination and a deep understanding of physics, they achieved results that still command the respect of modern engineers. This same practical brilliance found its ultimate expression in solving the most critical problem of high-altitude life, a challenge that flows directly into their architectural heart: the mastery of water. Their mastery over water transformed a harsh landscape into a haven of life. In a world of extreme seasons, where torrential rains could be followed by months of dry, thin air, survival depended on controlling every drop. They achieved this with a hydraulic network of breathtaking sophistication, a system that began high on the mountain peaks. They captured the pure meltwater from glaciers, channeling it through carefully graded stone canals that used gravity alone to direct the flow. These channels, often carved directly into the bedrock, snaked for miles across the mountainside, delivering life to the most remote agricultural terraces and directly into the heart of the residential districts. This was not a haphazard irrigation ditch. It was a precision-built, high-altitude aqueduct system. To ensure a constant supply through the dry season, they constructed vast reservoirs, lining them with layers of impermeable clay to create massive, sealed cisterns that held the community's most precious resource. But their genius did not stop at simple storage. They understood the dynamics of moving water with an engineer's foresight. To prevent their canals from being clogged with silt during heavy rains, they built clever sedimentation basins. These were wider, slower sections of the channel where the water would naturally lose its speed, allowing soil and debris to settle to the bottom before the cleaner water continued its journey. This kept their entire system flowing and preserved the quality of the water for drinking. In the city's ceremonial center, this practical engineering blossomed into art. Water was not just a utility, it was a spiritual element. They designed elegant fountains and serene cascades that graced their most sacred plazas, the sound of flowing water adding a layer of tranquility and power to their rituals. This seamless blend of the practical and the profound is the hallmark of their civilization. They did not just manage water, they celebrated it, weaving its essential flow directly into their cultural and spiritual identity. This incredible infrastructure is what allowed a large, complex society to not just survive, but to truly flourish in a place that would challenge most modern communities. Which makes the silence that followed so deeply puzzling. How could a people who had so perfectly harmonized with their environment, who had built a legacy in stone and water meant to last for millennia, simply vanish? The very perfection of their water systems may hold the first clue to their undoing. A society so exquisitely tuned to a specific environment is profoundly vulnerable when that environment begins to change. Climate change stands as a leading theory, with geological evidence from lake beds and ice cores suggesting a series of prolonged, severe droughts may have gripped the region. The intricate canals and reservoirs, marvels of engineering, would have slowly baked dry. The terraced farms, once overflowing with crops, would have withered under a relentless sun. A civilization built on the precise management of water cannot survive its permanent absence. This was not a sudden catastrophe, but a slow, grinding pressure that made life in those high basins simply unsustainable over generations. Other theories look inward at the fabric of the society itself. Could the very structure that enabled their greatness have also contained the seeds of its own decline? As resources grew scarce, the cooperative spirit that built the shared granaries and water channels may have fractured. Competition between elite families or a loss of faith in the ruling class could have led to political upheaval. The specialized knowledge of the stone carvers and hydraulic engineers, passed so carefully from master to apprentice, might have been lost if a generation failed to learn the old ways. A society can unravel from the inside, not with a bang, but with a quiet forgetting. There is also the possibility of a more peaceful end. Perhaps these communities were not destroyed, but were gradually absorbed. An expanding empire from the coastal lowlands or the neighboring valleys could have drawn them into a wider cultural sphere through trade or alliance. Over time, their unique identity may have simply faded as they intermarried and integrated, their children learning new languages and new traditions until the memory of the mountain builders was just a whisper. Alternatively, they may have chosen to leave, undertaking a deliberate migration to more hospitable lower valleys, abandoning their stone cities not in panic, but as a strategic retreat. Of course, the fragile nature of their mountain home presented constant threats. A major earthquake, while their buildings were designed to withstand tremors, could have triggered a catastrophic landslide, blocking the very water sources they depended on. Or, like many ancient populations, they could have been devastated by the arrival of a new illness, against which they had no natural defense, a silent crisis that depleted their numbers beyond recovery. The ruins themselves offer a crucial clue to this puzzle. In most sites, there is a striking absence of evidence for violent destruction, no layers of ash from invading armies, no skeletons among the rubble. Instead, we find a sense of orderly departure. It appears they simply closed their doors, gathered what they could carry, and walked away, leaving their magnificent city to the wind and the condors. This points overwhelmingly to a gradual abandonment, a long goodbye forced by a combination of these pressures. Their story connects to a profound pattern we see across human history. where environmental shifts, social dynamics, and external forces intertwine to test the resilience of even the most accomplished cultures. Their legacy, therefore, is not just in the stones they left behind, but in the timeless question they pose about what it takes for a society to endure. This same drive to build against the odds echoes across the ancient world. Far across the ocean, the Maya civilization flourished in a completely different landscape of dense jungle, yet they shared a profound commitment to celestial observation. Their towering pyramid temples were precisely aligned to track the movements of the sun, moon, and planets, just as our mountain builders charted the stars from their high basins. Both societies faced immense water management challenges, but solved them with brilliant, context-specific engineering. Where the mountain dwellers built miles of stone canals to capture glacial melt, the Maya constructed vast, intricate systems of reservoirs and underground cisterns to collect and store rainwater, turning a seasonal scarcity into a managed resource. This parallel reveals a universal human impulse to not just understand the cosmos, but to mirror its order here on Earth and to master the fundamental element of water. This pattern of sophisticated urban planning emerges again with the Indus Valley civilization. Their great cities, like Mohenjo-Daro, were laid out on a meticulous grid system with standardized, uniformly sized bricks used in construction across a vast region. This speaks to a centralized authority and a shared cultural blueprint, much like the consistent architectural principles seen in the mountain terraces and polygonal walls. Both cultures prioritized functionality and communal infrastructure, building extensive public baths and remarkably advanced drainage systems in the case of the Indus, a concern for hygiene and water flow that mirrors the mountain society's focus on clean, managed channels through their city. We can also look to the Rapa Nui people of Easter Island. With extremely limited resources on a remote island, they achieved the monumental feat of carving, transporting, and erecting the great Moai statues. This demonstrates a shared human capacity for grand-scale projects under constraints, a powerful collective will to create a lasting legacy. Their story, however, also serves as a poignant contrast. While the Mountain Basin Society engineered a sustainable, long-term relationship with their environment through terraced farming and water conservation, the extreme isolation of Easter Island may have contributed to ecological pressures that shaped a very different outcome. Then there are the Nabateans of Petra, who, like our mountain builders, chose to work in concert with their environment in a dramatic way. Instead of assembling stones, they carved their magnificent, ornate facades directly into the rose-red cliff faces. This was architecture in reverse, a subtraction from the landscape rather than an addition to it, yet it sprang from a similar philosophy of using the natural world as both foundation and inspiration. Each of these civilizations channeled a common human drive toward monumentality, celestial observation, and hydraulic engineering, yet each arrived at a solution uniquely their own, a fingerprint of their culture and context. Placing the Mountain Basin Society alongside these giants helps us see what truly sets them apart. While others built pyramids or carved cliffs, these mountain innovators wove sound into the very fabric of their sacred spaces, an acoustic layer to their genius that remains uniquely their own. The stones themselves could sing. Recent studies have revealed that certain ceremonial enclosures and narrow passageways were not just built for sight, but for sound. These spaces possess uncanny acoustic characteristics, designed to manipulate the human voice and alter perception in ways that feel almost magical. In one particular plaza, if you stand at a specific focal point and speak in a whisper, your voice can be heard with perfect clarity at another point dozens of feet away, while the space between remains in silence. This was not a quirk of construction, but a deliberate feat of acoustic engineering, a stone telephone system built for ritual drama, or perhaps for oracles to deliver messages that seemed to come from the air itself. The walls themselves were the instrument. Researchers have found that surfaces with particular textures and angles were carved not just for visual appeal, but to channel sound waves. A chant or a note from a simple flute could be amplified, its resonance focused and sustained, creating an immersive soundscape that would have deepened the spiritual intensity of any ceremony. This manipulation of sound reveals a design philosophy that considered the full human sensory experience. They understood that architecture was not just about creating a space to be seen, but an environment to be felt and heard, a holistic world designed to elevate the spirit. This multisensory genius extends beyond the echoes, inviting us to envision the vibrant artistic expressions that once brought these resonant spaces to life. Their stone walls were not silent but etched with a vibrant visual language. Beyond the clean, powerful lines of their architecture, a more personal form of expression emerges in the form of intricate carvings and petroglyphs. At first glance, these might appear as simple decorations, but a closer look reveals they are carefully placed codes. A spiral carved beside a doorway might align with the sun's position during an equinox, transforming a geometric pattern into a solar marker. A line of animal figures could trace a ceremonial pathway leading from a residential quarter to a sacred spring, mapping a spiritual journey directly onto the city's stones. This art was never just for beauty, it was functional, woven into the daily and ceremonial life of the community. The recurring motifs speak of a shared mythology stretching across the mountain basins. The condor, a master of the high air, appears again and again, likely symbolizing a connection to the celestial realm. Serpents, often depicted in undulating lines, might represent the flow of water through the canals or the deep, unseen energies of the earth itself. Spirals could tell of cosmic cycles, the turning of seasons, or the journey of life. These were not random choices, but a consistent symbolic vocabulary. Finding the same stylized puma or the same complex labyrinth pattern at ruins separated by vast distances tells us these people were connected by more than just trade routes. They were bound by a common set of stories and beliefs that gave their world meaning. The techniques used to create this enduring art were as varied as their meanings. In some places, artists used the bas-relief method, carefully carving away the background stone to leave figures standing out in subtle, three-dimensional form. In others, they employed a pecking technique, patiently striking the rock surface with a hard stone tool to create a series of small dots that, together, formed the outline of a condor or a human-like form. The finest details, like the feathers on a bird or the patterns on a garment, were often added through incising, using a sharp stone point to scratch delicate, precise lines into the surface. This range of skills shows a society that valued artistic specialization, where certain individuals honed their craft to communicate complex ideas through stone. These artistic fragments are our most direct link to the individuals who called this place home. A carving of a farmer with a llama, a scene of a community gathering, or a stylized figure that might represent an ancestral leader. All these works serve to humanize the architects of these grand structures. They move us beyond the awe of engineering and into the realm of daily experience, belief, and identity. They tell us what animals they lived alongside, what symbols they held sacred, and how they saw their place in the natural and cosmic order. This artistic legacy is priceless, but it is also incredibly fragile. The very exposure that preserved the stonework now threatens these delicate surfaces. Wind, rain, and the slow growth of lichens are constantly erasing these ancient messages. Preserving them is a race against time, a delicate effort to protect the last whispers of a lost voice before they fade into silence forever. The same mountain air that once echoed with ceremony now carries a silent threat. The very isolation that preserved these cities for centuries has created a fragile equilibrium, one that is now being disrupted. The relentless cycle of freezing and thawing is a slow but powerful force. Water seeps into the smallest cracks in the stone, freezes and expands with enough force to fracture granite, then thaws and retreats, only to repeat the process season after season, century after century. This natural weathering is compounded by the steady creep of vegetation. Hardy mountain grasses and mosses may seem harmless, but their roots are tiny wedges, patiently prying apart the joints of walls that have withstood earthquakes. It is a battle against time, fought in millimeters each year. Yet a more immediate challenge has arrived with the footsteps of admirers. Increased tourism, while vital for funding and awareness, brings its own set of pressures. The simple act of thousands of feet walking across an ancient plaza, however carefully, gradually wears down stone floors that were never designed for such traffic. A single misplaced touch can smudge or erase the delicate incisions of a petroglyph, a story lost forever in a moment. More deliberate acts, like carving initials into a sacred wall or pocketing a small artifact as a souvenir, vandalize not just a stone but a page of human history. These pressures are now accelerating under the influence of a changing global climate. More frequent and intense storms unleash torrents of rain that scour away the soil supporting ancient foundations. In the highest sites, the gradual melting of permafrost, the permanently frozen ground that has locked structures in place for millennia, is causing the earth to shift and settle in unpredictable ways, threatening to destabilize entire buildings. Perhaps the most heartbreaking threat comes from looting. Illegal excavations driven by the lucrative trade in antiquities tear through archaeological layers with no regard for context. A looted tomb may yield a beautiful ceramic pot for the black market, but in the process, the information about who was buried there, what offerings were left, and how the ceremony was performed is erased completely. That pot becomes a beautiful orphan, stripped of its story and its scientific value. In response, conservationists are deploying a blend of ancient wisdom and modern innovation. They are building controlled visitor pathways that guide foot traffic away from the most sensitive areas, using non-invasive ground-penetrating radar to map subsurface structures without ever breaking ground, and establishing meticulous monitoring systems to track even the slightest movement in a wall. This is a delicate balancing act, a constant effort to share the wonder of these places while protecting their physical integrity. The ultimate goal is not to lock the ruins away, but to safeguard them as a living classroom. Every stone left in place, every carving preserved, is a word in a story we are still learning to read. The survival of these sites is not just about preserving the past, it is about protecting a source of inspiration and knowledge for all the generations yet to come. A new kind of vision is now peeling back the layers of the mountain itself. Advanced technologies are letting us see through dense forest canopies and deep into the earth without ever lifting a trowel, revealing a lost world hidden in plain sight. From the sky, a technology known as LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, is fundamentally rewriting the map. Aircraft equipped with laser scanners fly over the rugged terrain, and their millions of laser pulses pierce through the thick vegetation to hit the bare ground below. By measuring the time it takes for each pulse to return, computers can digitally strip away the trees and shrubs, revealing the true shape of the land beneath. What looks like an unbroken wilderness to the human eye is suddenly shown to be a carefully engineered landscape. LiDAR surveys have uncovered vast, previously unknown road networks connecting distant settlements, entire terraced farming systems swallowed by the jungle, and the faint, geometric outlines of plazas and buildings no one knew were there. This bird's eye view is showing us that these societies were far more extensive and interconnected than we ever suspected. While LiDAR maps the surface, another tool listens to the whispers from below. Ground-penetrating radar sends gentle radio waves into the earth and listens for their echoes. As these waves pass through different materials, they bounce back at different strengths, painting a sonic picture of what lies buried. This allows archaeologists to detect the ghostly outlines of subsurface structures like ancient storage pits, the foundations of raised buildings, or even ceremonial chambers. It is like having a pair of X-ray glasses for the entire site. This non-invasive method is a game changer for preservation. Instead of digging large, exploratory trenches that can disturb a site, researchers can use the radar data to guide tiny, surgical excavations. They know exactly where to look to answer a specific question, maximizing the information they recover while minimizing their impact on the fragile ruins. Every scoop of soil becomes intentional. Every artifact found is understood in its precise context. Once the data is gathered, a third technological marvel brings it all to life. Using photogrammetry, where thousands of overlapping photographs are stitched together by powerful software, and 3D laser scanning, archaeologists can create breathtakingly precise virtual models of the entire ruin. You can fly through a digital replica of a citadel, examining the stonework of a high wall from every angle without needing a ladder. These are not just pretty pictures, they are powerful analytical tools. Engineers can use these models to run simulations, testing how the structures might have responded to seismic forces or heavy snowfall, helping to explain their incredible longevity. Researchers can digitally test theories about construction sequences, virtually removing and replacing stones to understand the logic of the builders. Perhaps most importantly, these 3D models act as perfect digital archives. For a site threatened by erosion or landslides, we now have a complete record, a virtual time capsule that preserves its current state for all future generations. This means that even if a wall eventually falls, its exact form and placement are saved forever. The flood of new data is not just adding details, it is forcing us to rethink old assumptions. A structure long classified as a watchtower based on its location might, when seen in a LiDAR survey, be revealed as the central point in a vast astronomical alignment, connected by sightlines to other peaks and structures. A building thought to be a palace might, through ground-penetrating radar, show subsurface features better suited for communal grain storage, shifting our interpretation from a royal residence to a public utility that served the entire community. These technologies are removing our modern biases, allowing the ancient landscape itself to tell us what was important. We are no longer just interpreting what we can see on the surface. We are listening to the complete story the mountain has been keeping secret for centuries. Archaeologists are quietly dismantling the old labels we once gave these buildings. That grand structure on the highest terrace was not simply a temple, and the wide platform facing the plaza was more than a king's reviewing stand. We are learning to see these spaces as the ancients did, as dynamic hubs where every aspect of life flowed together. A single building, with its doorway perfectly aligned to catch the solstice sunrise, could have served a triple purpose. In the morning, it was an astronomical observatory marking a sacred date. By midday, the same sun-warmed plaza might have hosted community gatherings where disputes were settled and local leaders heard petitions. Later, the space could transform into a bustling marketplace for trade negotiations, with goods from distant valleys exchanged under the same celestial alignment that defined its sacred geometry. This seamless blending is the key to understanding their world. They saw no hard division between a prayer and a business agreement, between watching the stars and managing the water supply. The integration of water features offers a perfect example. A ceremonial fountain in a central courtyard was not merely decorative. Its gentle flow likely played a role in rituals of purification or as an offering to mountain spirits, a deeply spiritual act. Yet that same fountain was also the visible endpoint of a complex hydraulic network, a public display of the community's control over the life-giving resource, and a practical access point for fresh water. The sacred and the utilitarian were two sides of the same stone. This evolving perspective is a vibrant debate within archaeology itself. It moves us away from our modern tendency to compartmentalize life into separate boxes labeled religion, government, and economy. For this mountain society, these concepts were a single, integrated system. Their architecture reflects this holistic worldview, where a wall was both a boundary and a celestial marker, and a reservoir was both a practical necessity and a spiritual wellspring. Seeing their spaces as multifunctional allows us to appreciate the true sophistication of their social organization, a complexity where every stone was placed with more than one purpose in mind. These silent stones are at the center of a quiet revolution in thought, where long-held certainties are being questioned. A growing number of researchers are challenging the established timeline, suggesting the foundations of these cities were laid not thousands, but potentially tens of thousands of years ago. This radical theory posits that the most sophisticated structures could be remnants of a pre-glacial society, a civilization that flourished before the last ice age and whose history was nearly erased by advancing glaciers. If even partially true, this would force a complete rewrite of humanity's story, pushing back the clock on architectural achievement by an almost unimaginable margin. The evidence cited is often geological, focusing on patterns of weathering on certain megalithic stones that seem to speak of a far greater age. This idea remains highly controversial, standing firmly outside the academic mainstream, but it underscores a fundamental truth: our chronologies are built on fragments, and a single new discovery could change everything. Alongside the debate over when, there is a passionate dispute over who. Did this culture develop its unique architectural genius in complete isolation, a brilliant flash of innovation in a mountain fortress? Or were they part of a wider network of ancient knowledge, exchanging ideas with seafaring cultures across the oceans? Proponents of the independent development theory point to the utterly unique style of their polygonal walls and celestial alignments, a fingerprint that does not match any other known culture. They argue this level of localized genius can emerge when a society is forced to adapt intensely to a specific, challenging environment. On the other side, diffusionists highlight tantalizing but elusive similarities, certain symbolic motifs or construction principles that faintly echo techniques found in other parts of the world. They suggest that even remote mountain peoples were connected by long-distance trade routes, sharing not just goods but revolutionary ideas about how to build. This debate forces us to reconsider the ancient world. Was it a collection of isolated islands of culture, or a surprisingly interconnected web? The very precision of their work fuels even more speculative theories. How could they achieve such flawless joins and drill such perfect holes with simple tools? For some, the answer lies in a lost technology, a method of softening or shaping stone that has since vanished from human knowledge. These theories, while outside conventional archaeology, speak to the profound sense of wonder the ruins inspire, a feeling that the conventional explanation somehow falls short of the majesty on display. Most scholars, however, continue to search for naturalistic answers, pointing to the incredible things that can be achieved with patient, generations-long application of simple physics, abrasives, and sheer human determination. Even the social world of these people is a subject of reinterpretation. Was this a highly stratified society ruled by a godlike king who commanded the construction of monuments? Or was it a collection of cooperative, egalitarian communities that pooled their labor for the common good? The evidence can be read both ways. The variation in masonry quality suggests social hierarchy, yet the extensive shared infrastructure, like the communal grain stores and water channels, points toward a powerful collective spirit. Perhaps the truth is a complex blend, a society with leaders and planners, but one where the grand projects only succeeded through the willing participation and shared vision of the entire population. These academic controversies are not just intellectual exercises. They highlight the fragmentary nature of the evidence we have to work with. Without a deciphered written language, every carved symbol, every pottery shard, and every stone's placement is open to interpretation. Engaging with these debates does not weaken our understanding, it enriches it. It reminds us that history is not a set of fixed facts in a textbook, but a living, breathing dialogue between the past and the present. Our quest to understand this lost society is as much about our own questions, our own worldviews, as it is about the stones they left behind. Their architectural fingerprints can be found in the hands of later peoples who called these mountains home. The fundamental genius of terrace farming, a solution born from sheer necessity, was adopted and refined by subsequent cultures who continued to cultivate the same slopes for generations. The distinct style of polygonal stonework, while never perfectly replicated, echoes in the foundations of later settlements, a clear sign that the old masters' techniques were observed, admired, and adapted. This was not a simple copy, but a living transmission of practical knowledge, a testament to solutions that worked so well they became woven into the regional identity itself. In the modern era, these silent ruins have been given a new voice. They have become powerful national symbols, emblazoned on currency, and celebrated as monuments to human resilience, fostering a profound sense of indigenous pride and a tangible link to a deep pre-colonial past. Artists and writers draw inspiration from their mysterious forms, seeing in the weathered stones a canvas for exploring themes of memory, identity, and our place in the long arc of history. Beyond symbolism, these ancient sites are now active classrooms for forward-thinking design. Contemporary architects and engineers are looking to these ruins not as relics, but as repositories of sustainable wisdom. They study the passive climate control achieved through strategic orientation and winding streets, learning how to cool buildings without energy. They analyze the seismic resilience of the interlocking stonework, seeking insights for constructing in earthquake-prone regions today. This dialogue between past and present is guided by a new ethical awareness. The study of these places is increasingly a collaborative effort, shaped by policies that prioritize community involvement and a deep respect for the descendant populations who view these sites as ancestral ground. The goal is no longer just to extract knowledge, but to understand it within a living cultural context. This living legacy ensures that the lost society's innovations are not locked in the past. We see their world being meticulously reconstructed, not with new stone but with understanding. Every pottery shard revealing dietary habits, every tool mark explaining a construction method, and every seed found in a storage pit adds a stroke to the picture. Their daily life is slowly coming back into focus, showing us that their greatest achievement was a way of living in intelligent, lasting harmony with a powerful world. These everyday objects tell a story written not in grand symbols but in the subtle marks of use. A simple pottery shard, its interior stained from long-forgotten meals, speaks of family gatherings and the sharing of food. The jagged edge of a broken stone tool reveals a moment of pressure, a task left unfinished. These are the fragments of real life, the echoes of individual moments that, when pieced together, transform silent ruins back into a bustling community. What did an average day actually look like for the people who walked these plazas? Science can now read the answers from the soil itself. Careful sifting of ancient hearths and storage pits uncovers a detailed menu. The charred remains of quinoa and potatoes show a diet built on sophisticated agriculture, while the bones of deer and wild camelids like the vicuña tell us they were also skilled hunters, supplementing their larders with the bounty of the high plains. This was a balanced subsistence, a careful dance between the cultivated field and the wild mountain. Even the pollen trapped in the mud of a 1,000-year-old floor has a tale to tell. The presence of certain plant spores can indicate which flowers they grew for ceremony, or which medicinal herbs they cultivated in small garden plots, adding a layer of fragrance and color to our mental image of their world. The tools themselves confess their purpose through the wear on their edges. A smooth, polished depression in a grinding stone tells of countless hours spent processing grain into flour. The fine tip of a bone needle, polished to a gleam from passing through animal hide or woven cloth, speaks of the creation of clothing and textiles, of protection from the biting mountain cold. A stone chisel, its working edge flaked and battered, bears the direct evidence of the monumental construction we admire today. These patterns of wear are like fossilized labor, clearly marking the division of daily tasks and showing a domestic economy where every member of the community had a role to play. Perhaps most telling are the objects that do not belong. The discovery of seashells from a distant ocean or colorful mineral pigments from faraway valleys is quietly revolutionary. These non-local treasures are the physical proof of connection. They tell us that these mountain communities were not isolated hermits. They were part of extensive trade networks, likely exchanging their high-altitude specialties like freeze-dried potatoes or prized camelid wool for goods from the coast or the jungle. This flow of objects implies a flow of ideas, a subtle cultural exchange that would have enriched their society in ways we can only infer. It is through these small, tangible details that we bridge the vast gap of centuries. We move from awe at their engineering to empathy for their daily reality. We see not just a master builder, but a farmer tending his terraces, a weaver at her loom, a trader returning from a long journey with exotic shells in his pack. This reconstruction of their routine existence does more than fill in the background. It provides the essential context for their grandeur. It was this stable, well-organized, and connected daily life that provided the foundation upon which they could build a civilization in the clouds, a society capable of projects that would outlast them by millennia. Their golden age unfolded during a remarkable chapter of human history. Radiocarbon dating of ancient hearths and stratigraphic analysis of their deepest foundations place the peak of these mountain societies in a period that overlaps with the late Bronze Age and early Iron Age in Europe and the Near East. While civilizations elsewhere were forging iron weapons and inscribing their laws on clay tablets, these master builders were perfecting their own unique revolution in stone. This was an era of profound global transformation, a time when writing systems were emerging, metalworking was spreading, and the first great urban centers were taking shape across continents. Yet high in their cloud-wrapped basins, these cultures often developed in a kind of splendid isolation, their story written not on parchment, but in the very layout of their cities and the alignment of their walls with the stars. Their timeline was not a solitary thread, but one woven into the same global tapestry of climate. Their rise to prominence and their eventual decline coincide with major climatic shifts, such as the Holocene climatic optimum, a period of warmer temperatures that affected weather patterns and agricultural productivity across the planet. This shared environmental context reveals a universal human story where societies everywhere, from the Mediterranean to the Andes, were navigating the same fundamental challenges of feeding growing populations and adapting to a changing world. Seeing them within this broader chronology transforms our understanding. It means that while one culture was learning to master bronze, another was mastering seismic engineering, each developing the tools they needed to thrive in their specific environment. This parallel innovation highlights a shared human drive to overcome obstacles, a drive expressed here not in forged metal, but in perfectly fitted stone. Their unique response to a global moment is what makes their architectural legacy so extraordinary, a legacy we can now walk through from anywhere in the world thanks to the power of digital reconstruction. You can now stand in the heart of a thriving mountain city without leaving your home. Museums and research institutions are harnessing the power of digital technology to build breathtaking virtual reconstructions of these ruins. Using virtual reality headsets, anyone can traverse the grand plazas when they were filled with people, look up at buildings restored to their original height, and witness the intricate water channels flowing as they once did. These are not mere artistic guesses. Every virtual stone is placed based on a mountain of data, from laser scans of the existing ruins to environmental studies of local flora and analyzed distributions of artifacts found on site. The goal is to create the most historically plausible model possible, a window in time built by code and evidence. This digital preservation is a vital safeguard. For sites under constant threat from erosion or other damage, these perfect virtual copies act as an eternal backup, ensuring that even if a wall crumbles, its exact form is saved for all future generations to study and experience. Beyond the immersive worlds, the raw data of discovery is also becoming available to all. Vast online databases catalog thousands of artifacts, high-resolution photographs, and detailed interactive maps. This open access revolutionizes research, allowing a specialist on another continent to examine a pottery fragment or an architectural detail with a few clicks. It also fuels a new era of citizen science, where enthusiastic amateurs can help professionals by classifying images or transcribing field notes from their own computers, turning a global audience into a collaborative research team. This democratization of knowledge pulls down the traditional walls of academia, inviting everyone to participate in the ongoing detective story. As this digital engagement sparks wider public fascination, it creates a powerful cycle. The more people who connect with these sites from afar, the more who feel a personal stake in protecting the physical ruins themselves. This growing global constituency for preservation is our best hope for ensuring these stone wonders endure. The ultimate success of these digital efforts will be measured not in clicks, but in the footsteps of the next generation, inspired by a virtual journey to become the real-world guardians of our shared human past. Yet the stones are not merely relics, they are ancestors. The very act of uncovering these ruins carries a profound weight, raising difficult questions about who has the right to tell this story. For generations, archaeology was a science of extraction, where artifacts were removed for distant museums, often severing the living connection that local communities held with these ancestral places. Today, a crucial ethical shift is redefining the field, moving from a model of ownership to one of stewardship. This new approach prioritizes deep collaboration with the descendants of those who built these wonders, ensuring their voices are not just heard but are central to the process of discovery and interpretation. It is a recognition that scientific inquiry must walk hand in hand with cultural respect. This partnership manifests in tangible ways, Before a single test trench is dug, researchers now engage in lengthy consultations with community elders. They discuss the project's goals, listen to oral histories that have been passed down for generations, and together establish boundaries to protect spiritually significant areas. This collaborative framework ensures that the knowledge gained benefits the academic world and the living culture it stems from, fostering a shared sense of ownership over the past. The aim is to conduct research with the community, not merely on their land. This extends to the management of the thousands of visitors drawn to these sites each year. Unchecked tourism can love a place to death, with foot traffic eroding ancient pathways and the sheer volume of people altering the delicate microclimates that have preserved the stones for centuries. In response, innovative tourism models are being implemented, designed to balance access with preservation. Visitor numbers are often carefully limited through a reservation system, preventing overcrowding. More importantly, tours are increasingly led by trained community members who share stories and perspectives that an outside guide could never possess. They might explain how a certain architectural feature aligns with a local creation myth, or point out a plant used for ceremonies that still grows nearby. This transforms a tourist experience into a cultural exchange, providing a vital source of local income while ensuring the narrative remains authentic and rooted in place. The economic benefits then circulate within the region, funding schools, healthcare, and infrastructure, making the preservation of heritage a direct contributor to community well-being. Perhaps the most significant ethical undertaking is the repatriation of cultural patrimony. Museums and institutions around the world are now engaged in the slow, complex process of returning sacred objects and ancestral remains to their rightful communities. This is not merely a logistical transfer, it is a profound act of reconciliation. It acknowledges the historical injustices of colonial-era collecting practices and helps to mend the spiritual rupture caused by removing these items from their homeland. The return of an ancestral resting place or a ceremonial artifact allows for healing and the restoration of cultural continuity, honoring the wishes of those who see these items not as artifacts, but as living members of their community. This mindful, respectful approach to the past does more than protect ruins. It builds a foundation for a more equitable and understanding future, ensuring that the legacy of these master builders is guarded not just by laws, but by the hearts of their descendants. Their terraced fields are a masterclass in working with gravity, not against it. Each stone wall did far more than just create a flat planting surface. It acted as a natural speed bump for rainwater, forcing it to soak deep into the soil instead of washing the precious topsoil down the mountain. This ancient form of soil conservation kept the land fertile for centuries, a principle modern permaculture now champions to combat the severe erosion seen in industrial farming. Inside the city walls, their architectural intelligence extended to climate control. They positioned their buildings to capture the low, warming rays of the winter sun, while using deep eaves and strategic wall angles to create cooling shade during the summer heat. This passive solar design created comfortable living spaces year-round without a single watt of electricity, offering a powerful blueprint for our own pursuit of energy-efficient buildings. Their most critical wisdom flowed through water. They understood their entire ecosystem was a connected cycle. The same mountain springs that fed their drinking channels were also used to irrigate the terraces, and evidence suggests they even directed used household water, what we call grey water, to nourish non-food plants. This mirrors the very modern goal of creating a circular water system, especially in the arid regions now facing severe scarcity. Every stone they used was sourced from the immediate vicinity. This was not a limitation, but a profound strength. By relying entirely on local materials, they eliminated the massive environmental cost of long-distance transportation and ensured their structures looked and felt like a natural outgrowth of the mountain itself. Their entire existence was a testament to a simple, powerful truth that the most advanced technology is often the one that leaves the lightest footprint. The challenge for us today is not to invent sustainability from scratch, but to rediscover it, to look at these ancient solutions with fresh eyes and apply their core principles with our own innovative spirit. The same creative problem-solving that built a civilization in the clouds can now guide us in building a future that endures. Their limitations were the very source of their brilliance. With no access to iron or steel, and with every building material needing to be hauled up impossible slopes, these engineers could not rely on brute force. They instead perfected the art of leverage and balance. To lift a multi-ton stone block onto a high foundation, they likely constructed ingenious counterweight systems. Imagine a long, pivoting timber beam with a heavy basket of rocks on one end and a rope attached to the stone on the other. By carefully loading the basket, a small team could generate enough force to pivot the massive block upward, inch by painstaking inch. This was physics applied with elegant practicality. For spanning ravines or creating projecting platforms, they developed cantilevered structures where each horizontal stone was anchored securely into the wall, projecting outward to support the one above it. This created a self-supporting staircase or balcony that seemed to defy gravity, all without any internal support. Their philosophy was not to conquer the landscape, but to collaborate with it. They did not level a cliff to build a flat foundation. Instead, they molded their structures to the irregular contours of the bedrock, fitting their walls into natural outcrops and building directly into the living rock. This approach created a powerful structural unity, anchoring the building to the mountain itself and making it infinitely more stable. Their material science was just as advanced. They did not simply use one type of stone for everything. By carefully selecting and even mixing different rock types with complementary properties, they created walls of optimal strength and durability. A foundation might use a dense, water-resistant stone, while the upper walls employed a lighter, more easily worked variety. This empirical approach, learned through generations of trial and observation, gave their architecture a resilience that humbles our own. Their entire culture of innovation was born from an unavoidable dialogue with a demanding world. Every puzzle the mountain presented, from a sheer drop to a fragile rock face, was met with a creative, site-specific solution. This legacy of adaptive intelligence is perhaps their most urgent message to us today. In an era of standardized materials and energy-intensive construction, their work stands as a powerful testament to the enduring strength of localized, responsive design. They prove that the most profound innovations are often not about having more resources, but about thinking more deeply with what you already have. This relentless inventive spirit is why we are still finding their work, hidden in the most unexpected places, waiting to share its secrets. The map of this lost world is still being drawn, its borders expanding with each passing field season. As modern technologies peer deeper into the planet's most secluded corners, new ruins emerge from the mist, pulled from the grip of retreating glaciers and spotted in the stark clarity of satellite imagery. These are not merely additional dots on a map, they are profound corrections to our understanding, revealing that the reach of these mountain societies was far wider than we ever dared to assume. A recent expedition in a remote Himalayan valley uncovered a sprawling complex that defies previous categorization. Beyond the expected terraces and plazas, archaeologists mapped a labyrinth of underground tunnels and carefully sealed ritual chambers, their walls bearing a unique symbolic language unseen elsewhere. This single discovery shatters the notion of a monolithic architectural style, pointing instead to a tapestry of regional innovations and a cultural diversity we are only beginning to appreciate. The potential for such transformative finds is immense. Unexplored basins in the soaring heights of the Caucasus Mountains and the vast, windswept Tibetan Plateau stand as the next great frontiers. These regions, nearly inaccessible and ecologically fragile, are believed to hold the keys to understanding how these building techniques and cosmological beliefs spread, or perhaps emerged independently across the roof of the world. Every newly documented wall, every catalogued artifact, acts as a crucial data point. A piece of obsidian traced to a source 500 miles away rewrites our understanding of ancient trade networks. The unique tool marks on a freshly excavated stone block refine our theories on regional construction schools. This is not just about adding more ruins to a list, it is about filling in the gaps of a grand, interconnected narrative. The pace of this revelation is accelerating, fueled by a new spirit of international collaboration. Research teams from multiple countries now share LiDAR data and excavation reports in open-access digital libraries almost in real time. A discovery made in the Andes one week can immediately inform the interpretation of a puzzling structure in Central Asia the next, creating a global conversation that transcends old academic boundaries. This ever-expanding frontier of knowledge ensures that the story of these master builders is a living, breathing entity, constantly evolving and refusing to be pinned down. The stones they left behind were built for eternity, and our understanding of them is finally beginning to catch up. Stone was their answer to the relentless passage of time. In a world of fleeting seasons and human lives, they chose the one material that spoke of eternity, anchoring their society to the enduring heart of the mountain itself. Unlike wood that decays or mud brick that melts back into the earth, stone stands defiant against fire, rot, and the slow grind of the elements. This was not a casual choice, but a profound declaration. They were building not just for themselves, but for generations they would never meet, creating permanent markers of their cultural identity and technological prowess. To walk among these structures is to feel the weight of that intention, a commitment to legacy that resonates across thousands of years. The sheer scale of their stonework was a powerful statement to any who approached. These massive walls and terraces did more than provide shelter. They communicated an unshakable authority and a deep, hard-won stability. For the inhabitants, these were fortresses of the spirit, a daily reminder of their collective strength and their mastery over an unforgiving environment. For any visitor from a distant valley, the sight of such impossible architecture carved into the clouds would have been utterly humbling, a clear demonstration of a society operating on a different plane of achievement. This was the psychology of permanence made physical, a message carved in granite that they were here to stay. This incredible durability has gifted them a second life, transforming them from abandoned cities into priceless portals to the past. When we run a hand over the same smooth stone that a builder shaped millennia ago, we are not just looking at history, we are touching it. This direct physical connection bridges an unimaginable gap, allowing us to feel a kinship with people whose names and languages are lost to us, yet whose hands we can almost feel in the cool, solid rock. They achieved what so many ancient cultures aspired to. They defeated oblivion, ensuring their story would never be completely silenced. In our modern era of disposable products and short-term thinking, their endurance stands as a quiet but powerful challenge. We build with materials designed to be replaced, while they built with a vision that stretched for centuries. Their legacy asks us a difficult question: what are we building today that will speak of our values and our genius 1,000 years from now? The ruins do not just tell us about a lost society, they hold up a mirror to our own, reminding us of the staggering things humanity can accomplish when we combine vision with unwavering perseverance. As we prepare to draw together the final threads of their story, we are left to ponder the full weight of this stone-born wisdom. Their architectural choices were a direct reflection of their soul. The interlocking stones, the waterways, the stargazing walls, these were not just clever inventions, they were a physical language spelling out the principles they lived by. That perfect, mortarless joint speaks of a profound desire for harmony, not just between stones, but with the volatile earth itself. They chose to build in a way that moved with the mountain, accepting its tremors rather than resisting them. This was a core value of collaboration with nature, not conquest. The monumental scale of their projects, requiring generations of coordinated labor, points to a society that prized the collective above the individual. A single lifetime was too short to see a city finished, so they worked for their grandchildren's world, investing in a future they would never see. This long-term vision reveals a people who saw themselves as a single link in a great chain of time, with a responsibility to strengthen the chain for those who would follow. Their buildings were a covenant with the future. This philosophy of integration touched every facet of their existence. There was no separate sacred district or purely utilitarian space. The same channel that brought drinking water into a home might also feed a ceremonial fountain in the plaza. The wall that blocked the wind also framed the solstice sunrise. For them, fetching water was a spiritual act, and studying the stars was a practical necessity for planting crops. They saw the universe as a single, interconnected system, and their architecture was a mirror of that unified reality. They did not compartmentalize life into boxes labeled work, home, and prayer. It was all one flowing, continuous experience. By synthesizing these clues, we see a civilization that achieved a remarkable balance. They were brilliant engineers with the souls of poets, master planners who are also humble collaborators. Their legacy in stone challenges our modern distinctions. It asks us to consider what our own buildings say about what we value. Do they speak of permanence and community, or of transience and isolation? The silent stones of the mountain basin offer a powerful commentary, reminding us that the most enduring structures are always built on a foundation of shared purpose and a respectful dialogue with the world. These silent witnesses of stone challenge our assumptions of what is possible. The mountain basin ruins are more than an archaeological site. They are a living lesson in resilience. The builders left us a masterclass in sustainability, proving that a society can flourish not by conquering nature, but by collaborating with it. Their precise stonework, which dances with the Earth's movements, and their celestial observatories, which root their community in the cosmos, speak of a profound ingenuity. This was not the work of a few, but the legacy of a collective spirit, a community effort spanning generations who believed in a future they would never see. Their story is a powerful echo of a universal human drive, the need to create meaning and leave a lasting mark upon the world, to build something that endures long after our own voices have faded. As we navigate our own era of global challenges, from environmental shifts to questions of community, the perspective of these ancient innovators becomes incredibly relevant. They offer us a different blueprint, one based on long-term thinking, harmonious design, and shared purpose. Their ruins ask us to consider what foundations we are laying for the generations who will follow us. Let this exploration be a starting point for your own curiosity. We have only just begun to listen to the stories these stones tell. If you are drawn to unraveling historical mysteries like this one, subscribe for more journeys into the forgotten corners of our past. We would love to hear your thoughts on these enigmatic ruins and the people who built them, so feel free to share your reflections in the comments below. Thank you for joining this journey into a world carved from mountain and sky, where every stone, every channel, and every alignment has a story waiting to be heard.